to the 175th episode of the SAWDUST NATION podcast with your hosts, me, Nat from Nap's Naughty Works LLC, and Josh from North Country Woodworking. And let me tell you, it's been like 2 weeks since I've been here. Sorry, got to back up. Got to welcome the Stash, Josh's Stash. It's the third host. It does have a mind of its own. I might have a fourth host here. It's not going to be as glorious, but No Shave November is coming. And yes, ladies, I know what that means for you too. However, please don't, for the love of God. But anyways, welcome to the 175th episode of our podcast. And it's been 2 weeks since I've been here, if you haven't noticed. If you haven't noticed, well, I guess I just don't matter that much. But it's fine because I'm just this insignificant person in the IG world. But I'm joking, folks. I know you guys miss me. I love you all. I know I've been talking to quite a few of you. But we've got a bit going on. I know I have a lot going on. Well, I had a lot going on in my shop. I'm finishing up a few things to kind of start to chill out for a little bit just because, kids on the way and everything. I'm also, if you hear me cheering or swearing, yes, this might be an explicit episode. I'm watching the Lions. The Lions have been doing great this year. I don't care if we're 5-2 and we lost to the Ravens and, we've lost to another insignificant team called the Seahawks. I don't care if you're fans of those teams because, well, whatever. I don't like your teams. But the Lions are playing the Raiders tonight, so I'm pretty excited because we should kick their butt. But I'm watching it now. It's 6-0 right now in the second quarter. So if you hear me going off in the middle of talking about shop talk and those things, that's probably why. But that's why you listen to us, because we're real. We talk about woodworking and things. And hey, guess what? Real life happens. And in this case, real life is the Lions playing the Raiders. So outside of that,
because the Lions, you might hear
your mother. Anyways, Josh is over here playing meow sounds like they're kitty cats. Who's your team again, Josh? The Giants?
Yeah,
I think they're the Little Giants. I think there's a movie about them. They do win.
They do need to grow a little. I'll agree with that.
Just a tad. But hey, listen, every team goes through their their down years. We were in our down years for probably about 3 decades. So we're finally coming to a point where we're actually somewhat relevant. And I'm enjoying every bit of the ride. But because I introduced and kind of started talking a whole lot, we'll get to Josh with his third host, I guess. And we'll see what's going on in his shop. Josh, bro, what's going on in your shop? What's going on with life? How's everything?
So I went ahead and dropped some money on some resin and some filament. I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rolls of filament, 2 things of resin, and I started 3D printing like I haven't in the past. I do a lot of talking when it comes to I'm about to do something with 3D printing, and I think I found something I really like. So I've been mentioning how I've been getting into Star Wars more and more, and I kind of nerded out. And for the Patreons in the chat, here's one of the lightsabers I made. It's pretty hefty. It's a thing. So I got actually another order for one. Actually, it's a set of 2 I'm working on, and that's actually taking up both printers most of the time. But, if this becomes the thing, that's awesome. I'll get a print farm for that. So I got those working in here. I had the laser CNC working out in the garage this last weekend. I got out there and I made a machete plaque. So back up a little bit. Gentleman I work with, he was in Guam, and they made him a machete, and he's safety, so he calls it the compliance machete. So it's a little inside joke there, but so I made him a walnut plaque with walnut holders, and so that he can actually slide it out and just swing it around if he really wanted to. But it has a engraving on the machete that he already previously had, and writing from the people that basically gave it to him. So I made sure that was nice and straight. And then in big stamped letters that I engraved, it was compliance machete. I got that knocked out, and then I did 1, 2, 3 safety patches one going away, and then another wanted just to have their name on the safety patch. And then the last one was for a friend. I also started on a vertical chessboard. Got the lines and everything cut out for that for the acrylic. I'm debating what kind of wood I want to use. I do like what I've seen in the past with the maple and walnut variations. I did pick up some Paduke and some Purple Heart, and that is actually that might be an episode worth of material right there, because the place I picked it up, it has so much history and so rich in history that I could talk about it for hours. It was a great experience. It's probably my new lumber yard. And I tell you what, the people there's not one that hasn't worked there for 20 plus years. They all know what they're talking about, and they can sniff out if you don't. Not that they call you on it, but I walked in there, I told them what I needed, and they're like, "Oh, do you want a tour?" And like, I got the whole shebang. I met the owner, the whole 9 yards, and it was just a great experience. We'll get into that probably another episode. But going back to the shop,
Hey, Josh.
I have a whole bunch. What's going on?
Real quick, man. Like, why not get into it a little bit, right? Because it's just two of us tonight. And what I can say is, when you go to a lumber yard and you don't know what you're talking about, you will experience something completely different, right? So, like, when I was in San Antonio, when I had first started with the whole woodworking gig, and man, it's still sunlight over there. It's dark over here. Holy shiza. Anyways, so when I was in San Antonio, I had no idea what I was talking about. 3 years ago, brand new woodworking shop. I was, Naps Naughty Works just established March 2020. And I had been in this place called Alamo Hardwoods. That was the place that I went to start. And I could tell you, when you see someone dressed up nice, right? They have khakis, plaid shirt, whatever the case may be, you think, okay, it's legit business, cool, whatever the case may be, and you would think they're legit. And he was legit, but he was also a businessman. So when they would conduct business, they would make it sound like it was almost like they were just agreeing with everything you were agreeing that you were saying, because I didn't know what I was talking about. I just knew that, hey, I needed this wood, and people, didn't know how much wood was and this, that, and the other. Well, I went through that stage for about a couple months, okay? And after I got out of that stage, I found another lumber yard, and that was through another maker. Another maker introduced me to Dakota Hardwoods. Dakota Hardwoods was a little different. It was, what do you need? Kind of joking, messing with you, because they kind of knew you didn't know what you were talking about, but they would sit there and be like, oh, what do you need this? Oh, you must be Air Force, because, you have the military haircut and this thing. And,
Yeah,
he would mess with me because he was Army prior, so he messed with me a lot. Mr. A is what I call him. And I'm not going to say his full name because, privacy reasons, right? He was Army. I'm Air Force. He's giving me all the business because I don't know what I'm talking about in these things. But then they went through after a while, after I kind of figured out, they would teach me things and all this other stuff. And then they finally showed me around, figured out what it was that I was looking for. They kind of told me, like, hey, if you want this is what you say. So I learned what 4/4 was, 5/4, 6/4, 8/4. I knew what quarter sawn, flat sawn, all these things. I knew what was it, S2S, all these. Like, I didn't know any of this stuff. But Dakota Hardwoods taught me about that, where the other place, Alamo Hardwoods, did not, because they were just looking into selling their lumber, because their lumber was a premium. I will say Alamo Hardwoods had beautiful lumber. There was no knots, no nothing. When you go to Dakota Hardwoods, it's a warehouse full of rough cut hardwood, with sometimes the S2S, it'd be, was it flat on one side and an edge, and make it easier if you do two-dimension later, any of those things. But then you had 13/16s where it was all flattened out, all dimensioned, all those things. And it was not a hard decision for me to go from Alamo to Dakota Hardwoods, because they were, one, nicer. They were more willing to teach. They weren't trying to sell me the most expensive wood, with the smallest board footage. And on top of that, by the way, board foot versus linear foot, so much different. I was getting charged by linear foot, but it was like a huge premium when I was at Alamo, where when I was at Dakota, it was board foot, but they would be cool about it. Like, oh, you can't use that piece. We'll take this off, all these things. So it was a lot better experience. So where Josh, where he was saying like, you go to a place like where he went and it's, no less than 20 years plus, yeah, they could sniff out a newbie, for miles, but I guarantee you, even if they sniffed out those newbies, they'd be able to teach them. Whereas Josh, he already kind of knows these things, and they're like,
100%.
cool, I'll give you a tour. We'll show you all the things because you kind of already know what you're talking about. Maybe we'll still teach you a couple things, but hey, we're not going to treat you like a new guy because you kind of already know what you're looking for. Which is why I think this episode would be good to talk about it because let's just be real. Every new maker, I'm not even say woodworker, just maker in general, because we all have visited a lumberyard. We've all gone to places that have acrylic, places that have metals and all these things. And, there's terminology that some of us just don't understand. Lumberyards are one of those places where if you don't get the lingo or the terminology, you can get lost real fast. So sorry, Josh, didn't mean to steal it, but I think the fact that they notice that you know a thing or two about a thing or two and gave you a tour just says that, one, they show a level of respect for the maker and they're willing to work with you. So later down the road, as you keep purchasing from them, because you've had a good experience, I would assume you'd go back to them, they will start cutting you deals on things, after you become like the main person that they see all the time. They're like, oh yeah, we'll give you like, a little bit off here, a little bit off of there, those sorts of things. But anyways, that was my small tangent. But anyways, Josh, continue on, bro, with your tour, with your new lumberyard.
So I got this lumberyard from a gentleman I work with. He's about to retire. He did woodworking for a number of years, but since he's retiring and he's moving, he's kind of given up the hobby a little bit. And it was unfortunate that I caught him on the tail end of his journey. But I was asking him, like, hey, you've been here for a minute. Where did you end up going? Because you know how it is. Just like you're saying, that you end up kind of going along and, finding different places, getting mischarged, however, getting mischarged, depending on where you stop first and who you talk to. So I went to the horse's mouth and he was like, hey, the place I went is called Coons Carpentry. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to check it out. So one weekend, we had some time and I ran down there. And it's only about 23 minutes away, which ain't too bad. It is kind of longer for around here when it comes to traveling, but coming from Jersey, everything was like 30 plus minutes away. So it was fine for me. So I go in and I take a look and they got a front store, different tools. They had saw stop there. They had different, band saws and not a lot of tools, but like you could tell like they had the really good tools and not just all the brands. And like that, if you really wanted something, they probably could order it for you. And then they had, a selection of different types of woods and, and then I'm looking around and the front desk was like, can I help you? And I'm like, I'm just kind of looking around. Do you got a price list? She's like, yeah, right there. Turn around. You can grab your own. They have like 60 printed out. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not used to that. So my last lumberyard, it was like they had this big, giant old book. And every time it updated, they scratch out one and they put a new number in there. So you never really quite knew what you were getting because it could be an old number or a new number, depending who read it. But it got better with time over there. Coming back to Illinois. So I'm in this place. I'm looking around and, gentleman, Mr. Ralph came out and he's older. And I started talking to him and he's like, would you like a tour? I'm like, absolutely. I would love to see this place in full. So we go back beyond the main room. There is some more lumber storage and you could pick from there. And then he brought me into another building and they had an entire workshop in there where they could plane things down. They were building toys out of poplar, put in their showcase. They have a full-time guy that goes in there to do that and do other cabinets and different carpentry stuff. And then they went into another room and then another room and another room. And like there was like 3 different rooms of tools and wood and like storage. And then they went into a showcase room where they were showcasing their furniture and cabinets and you name it. Like It was like going to woodworking Disneyland.
So what you're telling me is this was like a lumberyard on steroids. Like they legit had an actual, like, you could probably learn something from them. Like you could probably sit there and
You're gonna love this place. Like, I'm telling you, I'm giddy about it because as we went along, he started telling me about the history. He was telling me about how he started there. He's been working there, I think, roughly about 40 years or more. Um, yes. And then like it just on how he started and where he started and progressed and now where he is now. And like, he started getting into the history. Every single time he talked about a person, he knew them by name. He knew their backstory. He knew their story. And they would end up working there for 10 plus years. And some of them did end up moving on, but then most of them would stay on and they would actually help run this business. And so this was really speaking to me because like seeing like the finished products, what they had for tools, they did not have a CNC, did not have a laser engraver. This is all like, table saws and like, the basic woodworking tools. I mean, they had like, they're talking about 220 everything and, the bigger side of everything. Their joiner was so huge, it was mind boggling.
it's something we wish we could have in our shop, but it's just so big we can't fit in our shop.
I'm like drooling, and like they're like, yeah, we always, we're always looking for people to come in, and we'll teach them everything. We'll teach them from nothing to something, and by the time you leave here, I mean, you'll know everything I know. And I'm like, oh, can I quit the military now and just work here? But as we're going through, you're starting to tell me about the actual owner and how he laid every brick. And like when someone says that to me, I'm like, okay, they've done a lot. He literally lays every brick. Like if there's a brick or a wall that needs repairing, this gentleman will come out and lay those bricks by himself. So he can legitimately say he has laid every brick. So as we're going through this, we're talking, and we go back to the front office, and the owner just comes in, and I'm like, well, that's great timing. So I got to talk to him, and we had a couple conversations, and I'm like, hey, sometime would you like to join the podcast? I told him about the podcast, obviously, and I like to tell your story. And he kind of hesitated, and the front desk was like, I got something better for you. Because, I don't think that was going to be something that might happen. Older gentleman in this kind of media, I don't know if he was going to be up for that. But they have a whole entire description of how it started here. And I'm going to read it to you guys. It's not many pictures, so forgive me. But it's a little bit, but I think it's important to understand how this business began because I cannot express, like I said, it was like Disney World. I walked in there, and as I walked out, I'm like, this is the place. This is where I want to go. So let me get started. This is how it began. Kuntz Carpentry was founded in 1972 by Frank and Karen Kuntz. The company began in Frank and Karen's basement, building the first set of kitchen cabinets other than their own for a customer. Kuntz Carpentry originally started as a construction business, building new homes and remodeling exiting homes, and gradually grew into other areas. The first home they built was out of the country north of Highland, Illinois. Frank would often stop by his house over the years to check it out and chat with the owner. The owner still lives in the house today and is a valued customer at the warehouse. After a few years of working out the basement, Frank decided to build a small shop behind his house. This was the headquarters of the business where all employees started and ended their day, whether they were part of the outside crew building houses or the ones constructing and finishing the cabinetry items. While at this location, there were 4 to 12 people working in the shop building items, staining, varnishing, and meeting with customers to go over their plans. Kuntz Carpentry quickly outgrew the shop. So Frank purchased the old Illinois power building that is known today as Coons Carpentry Warehouse. Back then, it was just known as a warehouse. It was used for staining and varnishing and storing of building materials for the company. Some people would occasionally stop by the shop and ask Frank if they could purchase a sheet of plywood or a few pieces of lumber, and Frank would meet all of them at the warehouse and sell it to them. Once Frank realized there was quickly becoming a regular occurrence, he needed to hire someone to meet with all the customers, so he decided to open up a lumber and hardware store. In 1984, Coons Carpentry Warehouse opened for business. This area of business caters to individual woodworkers, supplying them with hardwood, lumber, and plywood, as well as tools and other supplies necessary for their projects. Once the business at Coons Carpentry Warehouse took off, more space was needed for the growing business. So Frank purchased the old Clayson Motor Company building, which is kind of like right behind them. After purchasing the motor company building, Frank drew up the plans he had for the building and a lot to sit on. A little at a time, Frank would add onto the building. In over a 7-year span, he and Coons Carpentry crew turned it into what it looks like today. He will be sure to tell you he laid all 34,000 bricks and 6,000 concrete blocks, except maybe 50. By himself. You can get a personal tour of the shop. If you buy our showroom, you'll see the motor company's structure fully intact inside of our shop. Their auto shop turned into our woodworking shop, and their office area turned into a smaller showroom for us. Frank's vision of the business was never to be a factory. He considers the workers to be more like family than employees. Today, Coons Carpentry specializes in custom kitchen carpentry. We also offer custom bathroom vanities, bar units, entertainment centers, and much more. Since all of our items are custom built, you are able to choose every aspect of the item and have it handcrafted to fit your application. The employees at Coons Carpentry provide personal customer service and quality products at competitive prices while maintaining the family-owned spirit. So very much a maker, very much in every sense.
That's like old school maker right there. Like,
and very big part of the community. I mean, like people were literally entering the store just to say hi. Like, hey, how's it going? Happy whatever. I think it was Saturday. So a little history there. If you're in Illinois, I would look it up and try to stop. Definitely great people, great rich history, and I'll be there quite often. And to give you some ideas of some of their pricing, I got their price sheet right here.
Don't you dare. I hate you already. I already hate you.
4/4 walnut is $12.95 board foot. And then let's see, we got cherry or what's the hard maple is $5.95 a board foot, and that's 4/4. Cherry is about $5.45. That's 4/4. So yeah. I'm pretty excited about this place. It is one of those things where I wasn't sure I was going to find anything that was going to be better than what I had, and I sure in the hell did. So that kind of wraps up my shop. I do have some other projects going, but they could be saved for next week if you like. Honestly, yeah, it's I've been busy. I got in the shop. I'm working not like at full tilt like I have been, but I got a lot done on Sunday. I got in there like at noon, and before I knew it was 7:00, and it felt good to be back in there doing, my normal. So
that's good, man. I'm glad you're getting actually a quicker foothold in Illinois than I have in North Dakota. You found a lumberyard that's local, right? That's easier to access than we'll say myself. But that's good, man. I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you're starting to be successful in the fact that you're able to get business going so fast. I can't say that I was as successful just because, here in North Dakota, like, and Heather can attest to this just because she knows, the arts and crafts here is what everyone's been going to, and like some local makers. But what I can say is there are a lot of makers here. They're just not so much. They're not so much forthcoming with what they do, simply because some makers are on base, and it's harder for them than, let's say, it is for me because I'm off base and I'm an established business, outside of the military realm. But Josh, if you have nothing else, I guess I can kind of just roll into what's going on over here. I don't know if you had anything else, bud.
I don't know if I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but I talked to the Arts and Crafts Center here.
Ooh, okay.
And they currently have a woodworker that's about 90 years old working for them.
Okay.
In his own shop, he brings in items, and they said that maybe we could sit down and I could start selling some of my items in there.
That's good, man. Just know, you'll sell your items. However, they have to make money too. It's just, it is.
Oh yeah, I understand. Like, I'm not too worried about it. I don't think I'm going to do anything too grand in there.
Yes.
But I don't know. There seems like a lot is happening with the shop all of a sudden out of nowhere. I even got an old customer from Jersey reaching out, and I don't want to say old, but I'll be doing a plaque for them and sending it their way too. So
good stuff, man.
Yeah, take it away, man. I want to hear what's going on over there.
Well, all right, folks. So I haven't been here for 2 weeks. All right, and there's good reason. So the first week I didn't come on because Sarah wasn't feeling too well. And for those that are just now listening in, Sarah's my wife. Shout out to the wife, right? So she's pregnant with my boy, my second boy, and he's been a bit of a pain. And she got kind of sick, just like normal, like flu type sick, And if any woman out there that's listening, that's a maker, that's been, preggo and has had a child, you know how that is. And even if you're not a maker and you're listening to this, you know how it goes. And she needed a little extra help because she just wanted to sleep because she's grown a human being and she was sick. So I took over daddy duties a little more extra than normal just because she needed the help. So that week, Josh was like, cool, man, take care of the family. And I can tell you that's one reason why I love this podcast is because I can be a part of it. I can be one of the main hosts, but I can take time away, take a knee, take care of my family, and, business as usual. The following week, which was last week, I got put on night shift for 12 hours. And it wasn't because we were in trouble or anything like that. We had just what was called a generation. We did some things, took care of some business, and it required 12-hour coverage. And I just happened to put a night shift. And because I'm still relatively new, and I say relatively new just because I've only been in there for roughly a month and a half to my position, I got a little more essay as to what it is I do in my particular position. And it just happened to be a night shift. So that's why I wasn't here last week. I worked from, I think it was 7 to 7, so 7 at night to 7 in the morning. I'm going to tell you folks, if any of you out there, which I'm sure many folks have worked 12 hours, Josh, I know you've worked 12 hours, and maybe even more, especially in the what we call the old Air Force, 16 hours was kind of the norm. I would say like the last 3 hours of the shift are the most painful. It's like 2 hours, and then you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, oh my God. And that last hour, you're like, oh, it's almost there. And it just drags. That was
always the worst, man.
Yeah. Dude, I tell you what, it was terrible because it got to like the last 3 hours, and I'm like, this is awful. I'm dying inside. This is terrible. But
I don't know for you if it's the same, but as soon as that sun goes up or comes up, I feel better. Like, it's hard the first last hour or two before sunrise, but like once it starts rising, it's almost like a second wind.
Well, so here's the funny thing about North Dakota is the sun ain't up until like 9 o'clock right about this time of year. And it was still dark when I'm going home. Oh, hey, by the way, in the middle of the generation and the things we were doing, it decided to dump 12 inches of snow. So it was great. So I can tell you that my last week was pretty busy. However, the last 2 days of the week, due to weather conditions and road conditions, because surprisingly, I never thought I would experience this. We didn't go to work because it was that bad. It was more dangerous for us to drive to work than it was for us to work out there on the flight line. So they decided to not bring in the people off base. The people that lived on base, they continued the mission. Everything was good. All right, cool. So then we go with all the time in between. Okay, so there was a lot of time where I was doing stuff in the shop and lack thereof. Before the 2 weeks, I finished those plaques. I emceed the event. Believe it or not, I got coined by the wing commander. That was cool. For not just the plaque stuff, but the extra work we did for the event. That was pretty neat. Everyone loved their mementos. That's what they call them. They're not awards. They're just like, hey, congratulations. Here's your plaque.
Political BS.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. I finished another shadow box, and this time it did not get damaged, and some learning has occurred. So, as Josh so plainly put it when we were talking about this, learning has occurred. So, learning occurs when an event takes place or an understanding happens, and the desired outcome is met. So, this time around, when I sent my shadow box out, based on damage that was made to the last one, I decided to take the byproduct of the shadow box, meaning the plywood that I cut the backer out of, and I cut strips out of it. They were the same width as the box itself, which was 6 inches, and I made 4 of them. I put 2 on each side, 1 on each side, and 1 on top and bottom, wrapped them in bubble wrap so there was no wood-on-wood contact. And then I stuffed it SOB with a bunch of bubble wrap. Now, I got away from the clear bubble wrap. I decided to get a little fancy. Uline has black bubble wrap. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be different. I'm going to get black bubble wrap. So I have 2 large. Hang on, I'm going to bring this up. Oh, man. This big old thing of bubble wrap. Uline. That's a half-inch. Bubbles, and then I got some I think was it 3/16 bubbles or something like that. The stuff you normally get from like Walmart or something like that. I got a bunch of that, and so I wrapped this one up, sent it on its way. I put slats across the plexiglass portion because that's a high impact area, so I had to make sure no damage came to the plexiglass. However, before I sent it out, another lesson was learned. So plexiglass and pressure does not mix. So I ended up cleaning the glass, and because I was using screws for the longest time, touchdown Lions, let's go. Sorry, that was random. Watching the Lions game as well, still. And I put a little too much pressure on a portion where there was a screw. It actually put a crack down the plexiglass. Now, normally I would have freaked out. This time I did not. Kind of like I've been in recent jobs where I've had issues happen and, where I've kind of had like that moment of like, oh man, what am I going to do? Well, in this case, I did not have any meltdowns. I was like, okay, how am I going to get this out? Well, Gorilla Glue is super strong. However, if you put enough pressure, you can push it out. So I drilled a bunch of holes in the plexiglass. I pushed it out, and I was able to re-glue or recut and re-glue another piece of plexiglass, put it in. Everything was good. Packaged it up, sent it on its way. And I asked the customer for a review on the packaging. Not the item, because they love the item. They'd already explained that they loved the way it looked, everything else. But I said, hey, how did the packaging look? Like, did it do what it was supposed to? They said, because I did that, it was a nice touch, and that it kept the integrity of the packaging. So I'm going to continue to do exactly what I did this last time because it worked, and it's not going to cost me anything extra because it's byproduct. It's what's left of what I've already used. So I've already paid for the material, so why not use it? So that's what I did for this one, and I'm going to continue doing that from here on out for the rest of my projects. So that was the shadow box. I did 4 plaques for quarterly awards. This was prepaid for 4 quarters. I just finished, the 3rd quarter. Took them to the shop today. They're going to award them tomorrow. And so there's that. And then I got this one that was prepaid for that I'm still working diligently on. It's 9 relatively large plaques, actually. It's for an Airman's Council. So typically when you take Airman's Council, you're going to get like small things. Well, this Airman's Council is very successful, and they decided that they want to do something really nice for their people. So I've got 2 that are not finished yet. But this is what the plaque looks like. Okay. So it's obviously unfinished, right? So it's nowhere close to being done. So a coin actually goes here. A patch is going to go over here. And then all of this is going to be epoxy. It's going to be the different colors of the flames that they had. And then I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do the rope in. Because it's cherry, I'm not going to do yellow rope. I was going to do gold, but gold kind of blends in with the cherry a little bit. So I might do like a navy blue or something like that.
2 Air Force.
Yeah, 2 Air Force, sure. And then I'm going to fill the words in with black. The words will be probably black. The stripes, I'm thinking I'm going to do the stripes in white. And that'll be, what their plaques will look like. The customer, for those, said that they were going to possibly give a little more in person because of the work I've done for them in the past. So, if they don't, listen, I'm not looking for that. If they do, cool. If they don't, awesome. They still pay me a good amount to do these, so I'm going to do them to the best of my ability, and they're going to present them next week, Monday. I have a small shadow box, one of those chief shadow boxes, the retirement shadow boxes I've made in the past. That's on the books. I'm going to start that this weekend. And that's kind of it. My jobs are actually teetering off. I have one other project that I just got coins for. It's for a combat controller recruiter. And and there's a little more sentiment to this one. So his father passed away, and they want me to make a bourbon set with glasses and things in a box. So what's going to happen with this one, and he asked me, he's like, what do you think you should do? And I said, hey, let's do this. So we'll do one for him and one for his father. So anytime he has a drink or a bourbon, he can have a drink with his dad. So I'm going to put something that represents his father, something that represents him, and that's what's going to go in the actual, we'll call it bourbon glass set. So that's what's going to go on with that. That's due by the end of November, as well as that Chief Shadow box. But that's what's been going on in the shop. It's getting pretty damn cold here. It was 50 in the shop. I turned the heater on just before I came in here because I'm going to throw one more plaque on laser before I go to bed tonight. I'll put it on there, let it finish, and then I'll go to bed. But that's what's going on here. It's North Dakota. It's cold. And yeah.
Nap this weekend. I almost called you. So I spent all day making these plaques, basically getting them ready to, get out Monday and so I can deliver them. And it was like, 6, 7 o'clock, basically time to go in, eat dinner, and, get started with the nighttime routine. And I looked at one of the plaques, and apparently I, at some point, ungrouped them, and the little O, like the center of the O and the center of the R in Air Force and all that, wasn't there. So it burnt like a circle and like an R without that. And I'm like, man, I was pretty upset because like I was done. I just literally had to put oil on these things and I was good to go. It was only one plaque. So I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? I should call Nap, see what he thinks I should do. And I'm like, wait a minute. Nap called me one time with the same issue. So drum sander, here we go. couple passes with that, threw it back under the laser. Everything was still set up. Hour later after engraving, it was good to go. So just a reminder, no one's above making mistakes. And sometimes you just got to recall some of those past mistakes or other people's past mistakes and, fix it. I was totally I was pretty upset. Cause I thought it was done. I was about to turn the laser off, walk inside, done. And, yeah, it just so happened that I caught it just in time, which I'm glad I did. I'm glad I didn't hand over some, piece like that. But yeah, I mean, I had a great time Sunday going out there and doing all that. It's good to be back and good to be making stuff, and especially good right now because I have enough stuff to keep me busy. But I also, we've always talked about this, how we always want to try making different stuff and see how it would sell. And I'm going to try a new shadow box. I've been looking at a very particular type of shadow box. It's very minimalistic, and I can sell it for less. And it might just do what some people want. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the whole facade, people don't want that. They want something simple and clean and just I keep saying simple, but that's what they might
They want just a frame sometimes. Sometimes they just want a box with, 2 spots to put some flags, I get that.
I like to try different ones and mix it up a little so I can offer more. And then I definitely have some 3D carving ahead of me too. I don't know. I'm excited because this time I could do a lot with. So, just because we don't have jobs, you can get out there and still make. But yeah.
I did forget one thing, Josh. I just remembered it because, I sent it out just so recently. There is a local business in town, not in town, actually on base. They did this thing on base where they had a craft fair type thing. And the individual didn't have a sign for their business. I ended up doing a pass-through job on my laser that had their logo. They had what they provided on it, and then their Instagram QR code thing that they displayed this weekend. And I'm gonna tell you what, I enjoyed making that. It was something so simple, but it was something so different that I was like, yeah, I'm totally gonna make this. This is awesome. And the customer's like, yeah, this is by far one of my newest favorite things for my business. And I'm going to be making more for them. They're going to have me make them caddies for when they deliver their product. So it's a little basket type thing made on the laser, and you put together, and then they carry their product to the customer, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, sorry, random thought. I almost forgot all about it. It was just because it was simple. It's not something you think would be awesome, but sometimes simple is awesome.
Sometimes the simplest projects are the best. I'm making a character, much like I did the Pokemon stuff and you've seen out there. And I'm making a Disney character now for an individual that needs it at the moment. And I was, as I'm doing it, I'm like, I love this. I'll paint it and it's going to look just like it does, in Disney. It's going to light someone's world up, and it's just, it's a simple project sometimes, man. It really is. And then being able to, knowing that you can make pretty much anything you put your mind to, it's a sweet taste. Every time someone goes, hey, could you do this? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. I can do that. I can see how that works. It's awesome. Live for it. But let's see here. So I do have a confession to make here on the podcast. Makers Don't Forget Challenge ended
all right, cool.
this last week, and I didn't get my flag out in time. I'm still in works on it. I'm going to do something a little different than I originally planned, just because due to time, and I don't quite have all the details for the original project down yet, because it's a little more complicated than the previous carves. So I'm going to try and knock that out this week and get it to the fire department. And I'm thinking about making 2 Because of the material I'll be using, I can actually justify doing 2, so I can hit up 2 different places instead of 1. But I will get that out. I still have full intentions of completing that, so just toss that out there. I know I haven't posted about it or anything, and we're all human. So this week is a pretty busy week for myself. I entered a course, and it's intense in its own way. So refresher training, we'll call it that way. And I'm slowly realizing I'm getting older, but a lot going on.
Yeah, I can tell you that. Hold on, let me turn this back up a little bit. There we go. Yeah, life's about to get crazy for me, folks. So I talk about like shop work and all those things, and things going on. I'm glad that my jobs are starting to kind of peter off a little bit, because come December 19th, Asher will be born, whether I like it or not. Like that's happening. Like that's the deadline. But what I can say is, even though I'll have my time off, and for those that don't know, for a while there in the military, they only gave you so many days off, as a father or as a parent in general. Typically, his mom got, 12 weeks. Well, mom now gets, close to 6 months off if they're in the military. And then, dad, primary caregiver, gets 12 weeks. So there'll be 12 weeks where I get to, spend time with my newborn son, take care of him and all those things. But also it'll be time for me to kind of recenter myself a little bit. I'll get to work in the shop. I'll get to go to the gym a little more. I can tell you there's a lot of goals coming up. So something that, I'll bring up is, when Nick was on the podcast from MPG Creations, he talked about, taking care of yourself and those things. And I can tell you, it is very much important. I can tell you that in the military, we have to keep up physical fitness and those things, pass a physical fitness test and all this stuff. And I can tell you that I'm not in bad shape, right? But I can tell you that I'm not in the greatest of shape. I probably could pass the PT test, but it is not going to be what I want it to be. So I'm going to focus on, physical health and whatnot. And also just being able to go in the shop and do what I want to do. When I want to do it. I can kind of do that now, but sometimes I bite off a little more than I can chew, especially with the job that I have currently and learning it. But I'm pretty excited to see what comes of those 12 weeks. I'm actually going to separate it. I'm going to go 6 on, go back to work for a couple weeks, and then take another 6. It's an option we can take. I don't know if 6 weeks is going to be easy for me, because I go crazy just with 2 weeks of leave. I don't know about you, Josh, but I have a hard time being off work. I don't know what it is. Like, it's like I want to be away from work, not doing it, but then you're like, I'm so bored. I don't know what to do with my life.
I am never bored. It's more that I like the job I do. I have all the jobs I've had. I like to go to work. I like to work. I, do something. I feel like, there's a purpose there. And I hate being out of the know, if you know what I mean. Like
For sure.
A lot of the jobs and positions I've had, you have to know what's going on. If you've been gone for a week or two, it's catch up. Like, you have to literally sit there and like learn everything that's been going on so you can talk to it intelligently. So it's just easier being there every day, so you know what's going on and, can fulfill that role. But,
man. I was going to say, yeah, so for like other makers out there that aren't full-time makers, that have like a full-time job, I wonder, and if you're listening to this episode, maybe answer this, send it to the SAWDUST Nation podcast chat and IG, send it to our email. Like, how do you detach? Because I can tell you, that first week, because of what we do, and I know Josh probably feels the same way. Like you said, you need to be in the know. How do you detach yourself from work when you're not there? Like, how do you not just think about it all the time? Because I know that's gonna be a challenge for me, because I'm gonna be thinking, what are my guys doing? is everything getting done? Are they running this? Are they running this program? Are they, forecasting our numbers for how many load crews we have and this, that, like all these things are going to be going through my mind while I'm not there. Like, how do you detach yourself?
It's funny you bring this topic up, man. And it's not on woodworking. You can relate it to woodworking, but like I've always been like yourself right now, like maintenance, you're right there. Flying, you're right there. Like everything's happening. Go, 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 go. I got a job now that's like I shouldn't have to think about it over the weekend. Like you could leave work at work, and some of my coworkers would have texted. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna be in work this week. And on the way home, I called them like, hey, how did this go? How did that go? And they're like, hey, don't worry about it. We got it. I'm like, so how'd it go? I got to know. So I like maybe something you slowly grow out of. I don't know. I think it's ingrained in my personality to the point now where like, I take work home. I'll talk to Heather depending on what it is, especially now with some of the stuff I deal with. Some things I can talk about, some things I can't, but it's something that I don't know. I like to work. I guess all makers do because I love the stuff we do. A lot of people are not full time and they, do this part time and they also go to work and they have kids. We're always moving. And like, I don't know if you ever turn that off. I look at my father and like, even though he's retired, he's always doing something. Like, he goes up to, they call it the farm. And like, he's always doing stuff up there. And then you go to our camp and he's doing stuff up there and like always doing something. I mean, he gets to do more of what he likes, like hunting and fishing, but the guy's always moving.
So, when I think about it, right? So when Tim says it, so I do leave work at work when I'm at work. So like currently, I'm doing the job, whatever, and I'm on my way home. I'll call Sarah. We'll talk about whatever. But then as soon as I get home, there's no more work talk. I cut that out. Like it's gone. But when you're not at work, that's when my problem kind of begins, because like, shit, what are they doing at work? I don't know what's going on. I'm not in the know, or I see in the chat, because we have like Facebook chats. There's like 5 of them. Holy crap. That's one thing in the military. You'll have like a billion chats and you're like, which one do I follow? But I can tell you that my problem isn't disconnecting from work when I'm at work. It's when I'm not at work is when I have a hard time disconnecting. And that's just something I think will come with maturity. I think, to be fair, I'm 33 years old and I still don't consider myself mature in some areas. Okay. And I think being able to recognize that shows a level of maturity, but there's still things that I just don't, I have a hard time letting go. With that, in February, I think February into March, I will be at Workbench Con. I have confirmed with my boss that I will be there. We talked about it because I'll be taking my paternity leave, which is the leave I was talking about, that 12 weeks. I'll be in that leave while I go there. I had to ask. I was like, hey, man, so I'm doing this leave where I'm supposed to be with my kid, but I also have 4 days where I want to go to this conference, and I need to know if I can do that and if it's going to be okay. He's like, honestly, man, if you go away for 4 days, it's not a big deal. Just let us, just remind us, type thing. So I'm going to do that. And then, next year will be Maker Camp. I would love to make an appearance at Maker Camp. I've already got that on the books to participate in that. But I can tell you during the 6 weeks, it's going to be rough just because I'm going to wonder what's going on in the workshop. But I think that's anybody that gives a shit.
You're going to be a lot more busy than you think you're going to be. And if you do have time, it's going to be used for sleeping.
Yeah. So it is what it is. We'll just see what happens. Yeah, Maker Camp 2024. And honestly, I can't wait for Maker Camp. I saw all the cool posts and I was like, man, I really wish I could have been there. Doing some of the metalworking, maybe playing what was it, the stump and the hammer and the nails.
The nail. Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what. That game right there, just put bets on it now. All y'all Maker Camp, you're going down. I love that game. Because I played that before I even became a maker. Like that was a thing. Okay, Josh, me and you, we're gonna put money on. Well,
we'll get our own stump.
We'll get our own stump. And we'll just play.
Did they bring their own stump? Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah. Wait, is that a maple stump? What's going on here? Hammer Schlagen. That is what it's called. Yes, and it's fun. And then we'll play lawn darts, even though it's been outlawed. But we'll play lawn darts. But yes, so. I'm really interested to see how this next year goes between not being at work for, what is it, 3 months? 3 months is 12 weeks? Yeah. That's going to be so weird. I'm already dreading it just because being in the military, taking time off, not being a part of things, promotions and all those things, it's a whole mind game, especially where I'm at now. It's like I have to be present, but to not be present if I'm doing the whole dad thing. It's so weird. But anyways, get off topic a little bit there. But
a little bit.
I'm glad to be back. I'm glad I got to come on this episode. I know past 2 weeks have been kind of crazy. I'm sure some people missed me. Maybe some others didn't even know I left for 2 weeks. But hey, it's all good. But we're coming up on that time where we wrap this thing up. So Josh, why don't you go ahead and start it off by taking us out with final words?
Hey, like always, guys, thank you for listening to the 175th episode of SAWDUST Nation Podcast. You know, we enjoy recording. We enjoy coming on here, get to talk shop. We've been dabbling into a little bit of our military lifestyle and home lifestyle, but this is where we come to hang out. We're makers. We love to make. We like sharing our experiences. Hopefully you can learn from our mistakes or, you know, some of the things that we do. That's the whole point for us, to be able to give back in some way. And if that's a lesson, if that's, a piece of equipment or maybe a couple tickets to Workbench Con, which are coming up in December, we'll be giving away a couple. That easy win there. I mean, like you just have to remember a couple episodes, listen back to the last 6 months, 6 months from December. And answer a few questions and get them all right and get chosen. You got a ticket, and that's a big price tag right there. The rest is up to you, but we hope to see you there because we're going to be there. We have some pretty interesting things that are going to happen in the beginning of the year. We're excited to share those with you. And with that, you know, go to the shop, go make some sawdust, and nap.
Hey, y'all. So I talk a lot about life in general. You know, I know Josh, he opens up when he's got things going on. But I can tell you what, when we're not out and about, especially like at Instagram, and we're not responding to messages right away and all those things, I'm going to tell you something. It's not for lack of wanting to respond or lack of, you know, we don't like you or whatever the case may be. It's just we're busy. We got things going on in life. We still think about y'all. But keep that in mind when others are, you know, trying to reach out to you. When you got things going on, you just got to sometimes say, hey, I got stuff going on. You know, we all have those things going on. But we're lucky that we have the community to support us. That's what makes us stronger. And we will keep doing what we do. It's just that's the maker way. But outside of that, love you all. I hope you all have a great night. Go make some sawdust, and SAWDUST Nation out. Oh, shit.
How do we end this thing?
I don't know. You're the one that is controlling it.
I just push buttons.